fuk233333333. Some of those in the 23 cult trace their origins with Alistair Crowley. Some say Crowley saw 23 as a number of immortality in his system of prime numbers. Others, such as Roberta Antonia Wilson, see William Burroughs as the origin point. William Burroughs used it for his Academy 23 network of men-only schools of the occult, Gennesis P.Orridge, GPO, and the Temple of Psychic Youth also used the sigil for organizing their chaos magic. Calendar, another name figurehead involved in the Festival 23, as well as dance groups like the KLF and SP23 spiral tribe. While many using the 23 sigil may be unaware of some of the right-wing manipulations of the main propnents of it. Indeed, they may themselves be half unaware of the occult machinations they are entagled in. The patriarchal, sexist, and white supremacist leanings of Crowley are well known. Less aired in Burroughs, well known misogynist views. His initial inception of Academy 23 was ITSLF, the men-only network. But he also known for saying women are a biological mistake and goes on to outline a kind of misogynist and transphobic transhumanism in his Academy articles from Mayfair in the 60s. Also remember he did kill his wife and escape jail due to his wealth. Another 23 culter, the writer Alan Murty, has been criticized for the constant use of the rape scene in his comics Watchmen, V for Vendetta, Killing Joke, to name a few. All feature gratuitous rape scenes of the major woman character being raped by man. Considering the final Academy event in 2012, while Burroughs' want for men-only space is sometimes attributed to his sexuality, the same can't be said for GPO, but GPO also tried to emulate his master by killing his wife, Bossy Penny Tutty. Some try to separate the person and the magic, the art and the personality, but we insist that the magic and the majik is one. This fascistic, patriarchal psychopathy is also evident in the organizational structure of their magics, like entagled Satanism as a new American identity of the new Christianity to make you into Jesus endlessly crucified and raised like a zombie from the dead. The book by Roberta Antonia Wilson, Illuminatus Trilogy, have popularized the ideas of the Illuminati as a secret cabal controlling world. History has been taken up by both the left and the right, but especially the alt-right. This appeal to reactionary and fascists is unfortunately inevitable, and as the book's structured, so the alt-right will be created. Beyond Operation Mindfuck and Mindfix is the Psychic Workers Union, the Psychic Labor's Front. What Roberta Antonia Wilson does in the metafictional Illuminatus trilogy is similar to other so-called apolitical moments we have seen recently, such as the Gilded Dawn, but also this goes back to the avant-garde movements around the first proletarian revolution 100 years ago, where anarchists, neoliberals, socialists, communists, fascists were all in close proximity through art schools of Dada, constructivists, futurism, Bauhaus, etc. Similarly, in the Illuminatus trilogy, Rome mixes far-right and racist conservative ideas with liberalism, libertarianism, and also anarchist and communist ones, and it's not clear in the text which side it is oriented. Compare that with a fellow psychic worker like Stuart Cohn, who is always very clear about the communist agenda is the anti-politics or apolitical cause of Rome makes his text much easier to recuperate through the right-wing. In fact, it is perhaps inevitable in the structure of the text and thus promote variation of struggles and stories. Colonialism is equal to anarchism, to socialism, to nationalism, all equivalent commodities or powers of the bourgeois subject/God. Because there is no guiding narrative outside its own structure, which is that of the commodity, the perfected commodity of the book. In Burroughs' writings for Academy 23 show not just misogyny but anti-human hatred and a kind of
In Burroughs' writings for Academy 23 show not just misogyny but anti-human hatred and a kind of transhumanist transphobia too. He's talking about becoming goddesses, Crowley, etc. But in the post-Abrahamic world that just means becoming bourgeois. It's the spirituality of the bourgeois self-worship of the post-colonial patriarchal white and the self-appointed savior of humanity. He gets close to this same transhumanism that is now pushed by fascists like Elon Musk about escaping both the body and planet of labor and land to keep your capital. That is God. It takes the old Gnostic ascent from matter itself, the class ideology, but now filtered through your Descartes and the abstraction of the psychic from the work, and then again some 19th century/early 20th century racial science, eugenics, etc. It's that social Darwinist evolutionary narrative that became the new ideology of colonialism when God didn't cut it anymore, which then gets reflected in philosophy with all the root races and descended master stuff. It's about seeing humans/history as this linear progression with white European bourgeois modernity as the pinnacle, and then imagining to go further still into a higher level of abstraction or purity, to leave behind the last reminders of the fleshy animal, etc., e.g. the bourgeois psychic fantasy that they can finally do away with the productive/reproductive workers on which they depend and can only exist in relation to. He might be right about going into space being a displacement of contradictions concerning time though, but he forgot to add class who, which is the main contradiction being displaced, and the main target of his occult manipulations to bury the class war. In this he echoes Lansdowne Liebenfeld's in his theozoology or the science of the sodomite apellings and the divine electron. In the end, after all, the academy, the school or university with its bourgeois categories of disciplines and sciences are wholly bourgeois at root. Rather than emulate these structures, we must determine them into working class organization of workers. Rather than appropriation and remixing, the hip-hop art of sampling-like situationist determined aims to recontextualize and transform the material of the enemy, the spectacle, to repurpose that which is used against us along with the material of our own culture. To determine the 23 hex, we intend to incorporate it into the psychic structure of the industrial workers of the World Industrial Union departments. Already we incorporated John D7 as a union of psychic workers or dead workers. We now suggest arranged from 723 as describing the class space between the dead workers and the psychic workers and the reproductive workers. Indeed, we do not need to confine these categories. The industrial unions, since we left the IWW departments, have developed in a fuller method. Currently, psychic workers are spread across 620,630 and 650 education, arts, entertainment and finance and office work. Perhaps it should be called 666 and be done with it. Currently there is still an urgent need for destructive worker section, and we might using 333 for that may be a pleasing sympatry back to the 600s. We see what reproductive work is currently also split across 610, 640, 680, 690 from health and nursing to cleaning, caring, feeding and sex work, and this area of reproductive work could also be used to describe the bridge across the non-existent 700 the particular kind of health workers who bring life into this world, and it is no coincidence THCP it is women who do this work. The labor creating workers themselves would be a fitting designation for the orientation of our class struggle as the revolutionary 0 point.